Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Duthier. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. Check out these monitors behind me. If you didn't know it by now, these are feeds coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center from all of our stations and affiliates across the country. If it's happening out there, we're going to bring it to you live right here. Let's begin. The president's major reversal. He's issuing a full and unconditional pardon for his son, Hunter Biden, who you see there in the images with him, saying he wouldn't interfere in the Justice Department's cases. Now he has. Plus, Arctic cold and blankets of snow. We're tracking a dangerous winter storm as millions return home from the holiday weekend. And of course, today is Cyber Monday. Record number of shoppers expected to hit their phones and their laptops, and also shop in person, right? You're going to shop in person, some of us. But we're going to talk to Amazon's Vice President of Global Operation, who'll join us later this hour. This is CBS News 24/7. All right, we just told you the president has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, sparing him from a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions. Now, the move comes after the president and the White House repeatedly, time after time, said President Biden would not pardon his son. The president himself said that to reporters. We're expecting to hear from the White House press secretary at any moment. She's actually on Air Force One in Africa. She's scheduled to speak with reporters on that flight. Meanwhile, let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman. He is traveling with the president. He's actually already in Angola. So, Willie, let me ask you, how did President Biden come to this decision?
Hey there, Vlad. Well, as you mentioned perfectly, President Biden has said time and time again that he will not pardon his son, Hunter Biden, for those felony convictions. And this is something that we've been asking about. And the White House had stood by that claim that President Biden wouldn't indeed do what he did late last night in pardoning his son for these criminal convictions. We know, of course, that the sentencing hearings were, in both cases, were coming about shortly. So perhaps that's why we're seeing the timing of this announcement from the president. But I do want to play some sound as to what we heard from the president earlier this year. Listen.
With regard to the question regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Now, perhaps after former President Donald Trump won the election, President Biden didn't really see any political consequences to this. Of course, we know since he made those statements, he dropped out of the presidential race. Democrats lost the presidential election. So this is the decision that the president and likely the Biden family came to. But nonetheless, it is certainly a decision that Republicans and some Democrats have criticized, perhaps seeing it through the lens of misusing presidential power to pardon your own child. But President Biden, for his take, he essentially said that there was a miscarriage of justice here, that Hunter Biden was unfairly targeted by the justice system, and there was political maneuvering, if you will, in terms of putting that pressure on to bring about some of these things that happened during that case in terms of that plea deal falling apart for Hunter Biden, and President Biden saying that Americans should still believe in the justice system. But on the other side of things, though, Vlad, he's pardoning his own child, something that has not been done before in American history.
Yeah, Willie, certainly not perhaps a child of a president, but certainly family members have been pardoned, including former President Clinton's brother, Roger, and even former President Trump pardoned the father of his son-in-law, Charles Kushner, who he's now appointed, as you know, to be ambassador to France. But the question I think a lot of people have, both specifically on the left and, of course, on the right, is why the president would use the language that former President Donald Trump has used when talking about the Justice Department. And he seemed to be saying in so many words that the prosecution of his son was political. If he had just left it as, look, I'm a dad and I'm doing this for my son, any father or parent can understand that, perhaps people wouldn't have the same anger that they have over this move. What are you hearing from the White House about that specific language and why he chose to pardon his son?
Yeah, Vlad, we really aren't hearing much. The president had an opportunity to address members of the media when he left last night from Washington, D.C. He also had a stopover, a fuel stop, before he's set to arrive here in Angola. And the first statements that we'll likely see, or hear, I should say, we won't see them because the briefing is going to be via Zoom, essentially. It's going to be piped into the briefing room here in Angola. We're not going to see images from Air Force One. Is Karine Jean-Pierre, where we'll hear her response. But that's an interesting question, one that perhaps only the president, his staffers, his team could answer. For the most part, the White House has been quiet about this, putting out this statement late last night. We did, of course, see through that statement, as you mentioned, the president using the words, talking about how political he saw the system be against his son, Hunter Biden. And certainly questions surround this decision as to why he decided to make this decision now, why he didn't use the language that you talked about, saying that he was doing this for his son. But the president, in making this decision, perhaps doesn't see any political consequences to this since he's leaving office. And you have former President Donald Trump coming into office now. So Republicans will not only control the White House, but they'll also control the Senate, and they'll control the House as well. So Vlad, President Biden making this decision and doing it while heading here to Angola and on the world stage.
All right, Willie James Inman for us this morning. Thank you, Willie. Appreciate it. Okay, our Nancy Cordes is following the response from the Trump team, and she joins us now. So you heard a little bit of that discussion that I had with Willie James, Nancy, which is the language that the president used, which is eerily similar to the language that former President Trump and his supporters have used when it comes to the Justice Department, the politicization of the Justice Department, almost as if this is a witch hunt against his son, when in the past the president had told you and other reporters in the world that he would stand by the decision of the Department of Justice. So now, how is President-elect Trump reacting to the news?
Well, he reacted very quickly, Vlad, and interestingly, online he posted this: does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the January 6th hostages who have been imprisoned for years? Now, you might wonder, what's the connection between Hunter Biden, who was essentially tried on tax evasion, and these January 6th defendants who have been accused of a variety of things, including assaulting police officers? The answer is there is no direct connection, except for the fact that about 200 January 6th defendants have already been sentenced. Hundreds more are awaiting trial, and Donald Trump has repeatedly indicated for years now that if he were to be reelected, he would pardon some, if not all of them. And so this is Trump saying essentially, okay, Biden has pardoned somebody who he cares about in a controversial way, and perhaps this opens the door for me to do the same thing. Now, there are Democrats, Vlad, who say that the fact that Biden has done this basically opens the door for Donald Trump to do the same thing and pardon these January 6th defendants who, again, have been accused, some of them, of violent crimes. But then there are other Democrats who argue, Trump was going to do this regardless of whether Biden made a move to pardon his own son or not.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The other interesting sort of question that we're all waiting to hear from the president on is why he chose to make that pardon essentially over the course of 10 years, thereby negating that statute of limitations, something I guess only the president can answer. But of course, it fuels the conspiracy theories that others perhaps have out there, including supporters of the president-elect, who say there must be something there. If not, why would you do it? Why would you do it for those 10 years, Nancy?
Right, and that's one of the questions that we would love to ask the President of the United States. I think it's no accident that he made this announcement just as he was about to board the plane to head to Angola, where he'll be for several days. So he's really out of the reach of questions from reporters if he wants to be. And even his press secretary, who would normally hold briefings in the White House briefing room, have to answer those questions for the world to see. She's traveling with him, so she may answer reporters' questions behind the scenes, as she did just this morning as they were traveling, but she won't have to be on camera answering the questions as well. And so obviously the hope is that somehow this will die down over the next few days before Joe Biden arrives back on U.S. soil.
Really quickly, Nancy, let me just ask you about two of the president's potential appointees that have not been confirmed by the Senate, including Kash Patel for FBI director and Pete Hegseth, whose the past continues to bubble up in news reports. What is your sense of whether or not, for example, Kash Patel can be confirmed by the Senate, given his past history and given the fact that he's never been an FBI agent and some of the statements that he's made in public about what he would do should he lead a department like the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Right. Typically, in modern times, presidents tend to nominate someone for FBI director who is seen as apolitical, because obviously this is a very sensitive position. You have the entire weight of the FBI behind you. You can investigate whoever you want. And so, presidents typically want to avoid nominating someone like J. Edgar Hoover, who, was widely seen to have gone after the president's own enemies. And so, Christopher Wray is someone, for example, who has tried to avoid any appearance of being on either side, Democrat or Republican. Here you have Kash Patel, who has made no secret of what side he is on. In fact, he has said in the past that he thinks that the FBI should go after Donald Trump's enemies, including politicians and the media. And so the question is how this will go over with Republicans who by and large are eager to show that they are supportive of the president and his nominees.
All right, we'll see. To be continued. Nancy Cordes for us in West Palm Beach. As always, Nancy, good to see you. Happy Monday. All right, a major snowstorm is throwing a wrench in the post-Thanksgiving travel. Millions of Americans are battling snow and bitter cold temperatures along the Northeast and the Midwest. CBS News senior weather correspondent Rob Marciano is live in Dunkirk, New York, and joins us now. Rob, we've been talking to you all morning long. It's looking pretty rough out there.
Well, it's pretty, but it's also rough, right? I mean, that's the way the snow goes, and it's good to look at. But if you're trying to walk through it or shovel this stuff, it is difficult conditions for sure. The snow falling out of the clouds, thankfully, has stopped for now, although we're getting bands coming through here. We have a lake effect snow warning that remains in effect through tomorrow. It gets a little bit more shallow as we come towards this end, it looks like. The snow is getting a little bit more packable, so it's getting, it's kind of heavy. I talked to people that have shoveled the snow across the street at City Hall. He's like, yeah, this is back-breaking work. So that's been a nonstop operation, including, of course, the plows over the last 48 hours. I got to climb over this bank. This is unrehearsed, so wish me luck. Just to show you what this street looks like. That looks pretty good over here. All right, we're starting to get a little bit of blacktop here, so hopefully that trend continues. But, we got more snow coming in. I-90 in Erie County, down in Erie, PA, parts of it, there was accidents there, so they closed it down. They've reopened it to non-commercial traffic, so they don't have jackknife tractor trailers and no motorcycles, Vlad. So you can't bring your Harley out there. We do expect to see more in the way of snowfall coming here and down to the south, maybe a foot or two on top of the 3 to 5 feet that's already fallen. We're just getting started with winter.
We are indeed. Rob Marciano for us. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, yeah, welcome to December, right? I mean, lake effect snow in full effect up there. Look at some of these snow totals. Barnes Corner, about an hour north of Syracuse, they picked up at least 65.5 inches of snow. And many places across western New York, northwestern Pennsylvania, back into Ohio have seen a ton of snow, 40 inches of snow in Saybrook, Ohio. Lake effect is beginning to taper off, though. We're going to see a reinforcing push of some colder air later on this week that will reignite that lake effect snow. But still places in northwestern Pennsylvania, Edinburgh could pick up an additional 10 inches of snow over the next day before more Arctic air does reinforce that lake effect snow. It's still very cold across the northern tier into the northeast, but we'll see even colder temperatures, Vlad, later on this week. More on that forecast in a bit. Back to you.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The busy holiday shopping season is in full swing with consumers cashing in on great deals. Some retailers say they are offering the lowest prices of the season on this Cyber Monday. Adobe Analytics predicts shoppers will spend around $13.2 billion today. That is up 6.1% from last year. CBS News correspondent Nancy Chen is at a Best Buy fulfillment center in Piscataway, New Jersey this morning. Nancy, do you see my iPad mini anywhere there on the line? I'm waiting.
You know what? I think it's right behind me, so I'll make sure to go down right after this and pick it up and hand deliver it to you. That's very speedy delivery. But yeah, you can tell from all the packages and all the purchases going on around me, it has been a very busy weekend, and this is the result of all those purchases. According to Adobe Analytics, on Friday alone, consumers spent nearly $11 billion online. That is up 10% from last year. Plenty more action, of course, today, the biggest online spending and shopping day ever. That's what they're expecting. Online spending in general expected to peak between the hours of 8 and 10 o'clock tonight, with, get this, Vlad, $15.7 million spent every minute. And if you are looking, and so many of us are, even as we pretend to work, right? The biggest discounts will be on electronics and apparel, with the average discount in general about 30%. So some really good deals out there.
So what are some of the top consumer trends this year, Nancy? What are Americans buying? It's always tough on Cyber Monday and even on Black Friday. You know you should be buying something because the deals are so good, but oftentimes you're like, well, what should I get?
Well, and also my biggest challenge is buying for others rather than just myself. But that is something that you should buy for all today if you can. Social media influencers and chat-powered or AI-powered chatbots have been a huge game changer this year, especially on Black Friday and over the weekend. Traffic to retail sites from chatbots increased by 1,800%. That is 1,800% compared to the same period last year. Buy now, pay later programs also seeing huge growth, approaching the $1 billion mark. And today, this is set to be the single largest day on record for them, with consumers really leaning on them for electronics, apparel, video games, and groceries. Of course, Vlad, toys always a hot item this time of year, but this year especially, online sales have really jumped up more than 130% last month compared to the average daily sales in October, Vlad. So if you're looking for something for members of the family or maybe yourself, today could be a good day for that as well.
Indeed it is. All right, Nancy, thank you very much. Appreciate you. We will have, of course, much more on Cyber Monday later this hour when we speak to Amazon Global Operations Vice President Sarah Rhodes, so you want to stick around for that. All right, Syrian rebels have seized control of one of the country's largest cities. That's Aleppo coming up. The very latest on the dramatic and fast offensive plunging the country into chaos. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Jury selection begins today for the trial of a woman accused of driving drunk and killing a bride on her wedding night. It happened last April in Folly Beach, South Carolina. The bride and her groom left the wedding party on a golf cart with two other family members. They were reportedly struck by a car driven by 27-year-old Jamie Lee Komorowski. Investigators say Komorowski had a blood alcohol level more than 3 times the legal limit. The bride was ejected from the golf cart and tragically died. The others sustained serious injuries. Komorowski is charged with reckless vehicular homicide and 3 counts of felony DUI. If convicted, she faces up to 25 years in prison. We're following a dramatic shift in the Syrian civil war this morning. Over the weekend, rebel fighters took control of most of Aleppo. That is the country's second largest city, and they did it in a lightning assault. President Bashar al-Assad's regime has responded with airstrikes backed by Russia. The nearly 14 years long war has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives and until recently was locked in a stalemate. Joining us now for more on this is CBS News reporter Courtney Keeley. Courtney, good to see you. So tell us what we know about the situation on the ground, why this offensive is happening now, and how the rebels were able to so quickly seize Aleppo.
So we'll try to really break it down. These are Syrian opposition fighters, and they're composed of different groups formerly allied to al-Qaeda and ISIS, and that's a big problem for the administration, outgoing and incoming, both President Biden and President-elect Trump. So what we're looking at is a huge piece of territory, and that's why it matters. These Syrian opposition fighters were sitting in Idlib province, which is into the northeast, and they made this huge lightning offensive, capturing most of Aleppo, Idlib province, and a large swath of land in the west. There was a power vacuum. Hezbollah fighters have largely been decapitated. They've been fighting on the side of President al-Assad throughout the civil war. They're back in Lebanon trying to regroup, and they're not going to be armed anymore. So he's lost that group to defend him. Al-Assad's forces basically disappeared, melted into the background and they're called Hayat al-Tahrir al-Shams. We'll go with HTS on that. HTS moved in. They took over the city. And now we have to really see what their objectives are and how far, and will they get to Damascus? That's the big question. You have now, and it involves everybody, Iraqi loyal Shia groups, and militia groups. They also have confusing names, Kataib Hezbollah. That's not the Hezbollah Lebanon. This is Hezbollah from Iraq. They have crossed the border to defend al-Assad's forces. So we're seeing what has been known as a civil war. It's been dormant for 8 years. This lightning offensive, changing facts on the ground, involving all these different countries, because Turkey borders, and Turkey has been known to offer assistance, not military and in any way or weapons, but support to this group because they see this group as somebody that could maybe topple al-Assad. Others do, but you have to be cautious because is it the devil you know or the devil you don't know? Al-Assad is known as a butcher. He's put down his own people, massacred, tortured. He's got a black record. But these guys coming in, al-Jolani is the head of HTS, which I just gave you the acronym for. He was allied to al-Qaeda. Is this something we're seeing ISIS come back, or is this a group that will remain moderate? And we have to wait and see on that. But right now it involves Russia, who's really on the back foot because they're distracted by Ukraine. It involves Lebanon. Their fighters are no longer there, but they border it. It involves Iran, because Iran protects their holy sites in Damascus and has propped up al-Assad. But they're on the back foot with Israeli military operations. So you have a big change in this huge piece of land that borders so many other countries. And I'll just keep you updated on this. This is really just the beginning as we're seeing it.
Yeah, and no one can break it down the way that you can, Courtney. Thank you very much for your reporting and your analysis and insight. We appreciate it. All right, President-elect Donald Trump's latest administration pick is sending shockwaves through Washington. What you need to know about Kash Patel. He's the loyalist tapped to lead the FBI. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following. Closing arguments begin this morning in the murder trial of the man accused of fatally stabbing Cash App founder Bob Lee. Last week, the jury heard directly from Nima Momeni. He took the stand answering several rounds of written questions from jurors. Momeni claims he acted in self-defense and has pleaded not guilty. He faces up to life in prison if convicted. And here in New York, we're watching another trial closely. Closing arguments begin today in Daniel Penny's trial. He is the Marine veteran charged in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely on board a subway train. Penny pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and negligent homicide. He claims he acted in self-defense while protecting other subway riders. Prosecutors say Penny used excessive force. And a stampede at a soccer match in Guinea has killed at least 56 people. It happened at a local match in the nation's second largest city. A government spokesman says fans ran from the stadium after others started throwing rocks to protest calls made by the referee. Multiple children are sadly believed to be among the victims. All right, President-elect Donald Trump has announced he's intending to nominate Kash Patel as FBI director, and some have questioned Patel's impartiality as an outspoken Trump loyalist. Further complicating things is the fact that the person currently holding that job, Christopher Wray, was also appointed by the president-elect. Joining us now is Chris Piotta. He's the former executive assistant director of the FBI and the author of the book, Wanted, the FBI I Once Knew. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to visit with you and your audience.
So this is the third hiring decision Donald Trump has made for FBI director. As you know, he fired James Comey. He then hired Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray still has 2+ years left on his term, as you know, Chris, and he hasn't indicated that he's retiring or resigning from that position. So in this particular instance, would the president of the United States, once he is sworn into office, have to fire Wray to nominate Patel?
It's not a normal practice to fire the FBI director between changing administrations. That's why the 10-year term was put in place to allow the FBI director to conduct the business of the Bureau without fear of turnover every so many years due to a change in administration. So it's not regular business, but I will add that the FBI director, along with other officials in the executive branch, they do serve at the pleasure of the president.
So let's talk about Kash Patel's qualifications. Almost all of the most recent appointees to that role have been either judges or former Department of Justice officials, I think, and my memory is stretched here, but the last guy to run the FBI, who was actually a former FBI agent, was Louis Freeh. That was some 5 or 6 directors ago. But does the qualifications that he does bring, Kash Patel, matter to the president-elect? In other words, he's being seen as a disruptor, and perhaps some people feel, at least those who are in President-elect Trump's camp, feel that that's what the Bureau needs. How do you see it?
I think that Mr. Patel has a certain experience base that it will allow him to understand and work within the current and evolving threat environments that the FBI faces, whether it's national security issues or crime problems. One of the things I'd like to say about the FBI director is that role, they are the primary protector and champion of the FBI brand. So one of the first things that Mr. Patel, if he's successful in passing through the confirmation process, will have to establish himself as the leader of the FBI, working with the Attorney General as a bellwether official for the law enforcement and intelligence communities. So I believe he has a background that gives him the ability to work in that environment. I think his experience, he's worked at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He's worked in the Department of Defense. He's worked on the Hill in certain national security issues. And he's also spent some time at the National Security Council. I used to go to those types of meetings, so you get a good rounded view of what's going on in the world.
So we just put up a graphic, Chris, that just sort of shows how big, perhaps people are not aware of how big the FBI actually is. Some 33,000 employees, more 37,000 employees spread out across 400 offices, and a budget of over $11 billion. So the question, of course, and we were talking about it earlier in our broadcast, the FBI director role is seen as apolitical. Kash Patel is coming to the role as someone who is not apolitical. He's clearly partisan. The question for you is, how will the rank and file respond to that? The FBI agent, man or woman who's just doing the job, who doesn't have any skin in the politics game, just wants to do quality law enforcement work. How will those folks on the front lines, feel about someone at the top of the Bureau who is such a political person?
I think Mr. Patel has to make it a priority to establish himself as the leader of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and not as a political figure, even though he is a political appointee. One of the things I will say that will be key to his success is the leadership team that he develops or he brings with him. He will have career FBI special agents and professional staff members who will support his efforts and help execute his wishes in line with what the administration is looking to accomplish. So he's going to have to make those relationships by, with, and through folks at the FBI in certain leadership positions now. He's going to have to work with and through them to establish those relationships with the line agents and the people who conduct the very tough and taxing work of the Bureau every day. He's going to have to also make sure that his messaging is received in a constructive fashion, that he's there to help make some changes to the FBI. He's not there to throw out everything that the FBI accomplishes day to day on behalf of the American people.
It's an excellent point. Chris Paiota, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, December is off to a stormy start as the Northeast and the Midwest deal with heavy snow and rain, and the wintry weather is bringing holiday travel to a standstill for some as they return home. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve is tracking the travel.
We've been talking about how this was going to be the busiest Thanksgiving travel period ever, and it appears it has lived up to that hype. The TSA says it screened, based on preliminary numbers, nearly 3.1 million people at airport checkpoints on Sunday. That surpasses the previous high of just over 3 million that was set in July. Today could be the second busiest at airports of the entire travel rush. The TSA expects to screen nearly 2.9 million people. American Airlines tells us it will be its second busiest day. They'll fly nearly 750,000 people just on American alone. On the roads, we expect some disruptions because of the winter weather that's going on, that lake effect snow in parts of New York, Pennsylvania, and the upper Midwest. Also, it is very cold, so we could see delays or ice on the roads, as well as at the airports where they have to de-ice airplanes. The FAA is watching Newark and Seattle for potential delays today. Newark has been experiencing a repeat of air traffic control staffing issues pretty much every day during this holiday. That appears to be a possibility again today. But overall, while there have been thousands of delays, many due to weather, cancellations have been very low. So this has been a very successful holiday stretch for the airlines. They've completed the vast majority of their flights. As we look to today, busy on the roads, busy in the skies, and in less than 3 weeks, we do it all over again when the Christmas and New Year's travel season fires up. Back to you.
Bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with another look at the national forecast. Hi, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, yeah, we were fortunate. We didn't have any significant and far-reaching winter storms, but like we all know in the East, it is very cold. In fact, this Arctic blast is not going to really let up anytime soon. Let me bring up the globe here. I want to show you this because I'm going to put on the temperatures, okay? And you can see how that cold Arctic air is dropping in from literally the Arctic Circle. Now, I'm going to put this into a forecast as we go through the first half of the week into Thursday. Look at this. Another lobe of Arctic air begins to plunge to the south, meaning where we're cold now, there will be a little bit of a warm up before a reinforcing push of Arctic air as we head into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of the upcoming week. Let me show you how many folks across the eastern half of the United States are waking up this morning. Temperatures 7 degrees in Bismarck, North Dakota. Feels like temperatures 3 degrees below zero. Forecast as we go into this afternoon, Minneapolis sees a high temperature of 26. Obviously, that's cold, but watch what happens as we see that reinforcing push of Arctic air arrive. Minneapolis sees a low temperature Thursday morning of 6. But then a high temperature Thursday afternoon of 17. And that's not even talking about the wind chill. Meanwhile, that Arctic air mass moving across the relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes is actually beginning to taper off some of that lake effect snow, but still some places, Vlad, could pick up an additional 10 inches of snow on top of the feet they've picked up since Thanksgiving. Back to you.
Oh, boy. All right, Grant, thank you very much. Cyber Monday is in full effect with many Americans glued to their phones or computers hoping to cash in on some major deals. Many of those consumers are flocking to online retail giant Amazon.com. I want to bring in Sarah Rhodes now to talk a little bit more about this. She's the Vice President of Global Operations at Amazon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us today on Cyber Monday, Vlad. Our teams are really excited about it, and our customers are as well.
So you do have a lot of customers at this time of year. Just give us a sense of how the operations team is preparing to deliver for its customers over this very busy period.
So we certainly prepare all year for this event. The main thing that we've done is hire 250,000 employees to help ensure that we have the capacity to meet the demand. And I'm really proud to say that our starting wage for our entry-level positions is $22 per hour. Our healthcare benefits for an employee who starts today are exactly the same as my healthcare benefits that I have after over 13 years with the company. And I think about the career choice program that we have that help our employees upskill and further develop their careers at Amazon at no cost to our employees. So we do a lot to prepare for this, but it's something that we do throughout the year as well. So no different in that regard.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you update us on the way that the employees are now being hired and how they're being paid and ultimately how they're being treated, Sarah, because as you know, there have been some reporting in years past about some of the working conditions at Amazon, especially during periods like this. So it's good to hear that the upgrades that have been made are benefiting them. So now the question becomes, how are they able to move the amount of packages that they're able to do at this time of year? Because I ordered a couple of things from Amazon. In fact, I ordered something last night and I already got a message that it's been delivered. So that's kind of mind-boggling to me. How is that happening?
Well, first of all, thank you for your patronage, Vlad, and hopefully you're a happy customer. But as you can see behind me, this is one of our busiest times of year, and I'm in a fulfillment center in New Jersey. And you can see that things are calm, cool, collected. We're going to be hitting some record volumes, just like we hit a record Black Friday. So we're really excited about the capacity that we've been able to handle this demand. And one of the ways that we've done that is through automation and robotics. In this particular site that I'm in, we're using automation to help make the jobs of our employees simpler. So instead of an employee going from point A to point B to pick orders, we have robotic drives that actually deliver the product to our employees to then pick it. So it helps to make things not only safer, but more efficient. If I think about the speed of service that you mentioned, you said you just received a notification that you're getting an order today. We've really focused on regionalizing our network in the US. So 76% of orders that are placed are actually fulfilled within a region, which means within a couple hundred miles of our customers. So we are 30% faster this year than we were at this time last year. So I'm glad to hear and know that our customers are seeing that come through in their experience.
Let me ask you, Sarah, about the sustainability efforts that Amazon is focused on, specifically with a company as large as Amazon. I know that the goal has been over the past couple of years to try and reduce your carbon footprint, but it does sometimes feel piecemeal. In other words, sometimes I'll get a package in a plastic bag, which is not great. Other times, the same similar sized delivery will be made in a paper wrapper and a paper bag. And so why not just roll that out across the board? I get that in some instances, some packages, bigger packages will have to be delivered in those cardboard boxes, which I'm so tired of breaking down, Sarah. I just got to say. But it would be nice to just also see that the smaller items come in those sustainable packages.
We hear you loud and clear. We've invested quite a bit in our mechatronics and our packaging. We're moving more and more to paper-based packaging. And one thing that you've likely noticed, Vlad, especially given the number of orders that you placed, is as of October, we eliminated the plastic pillows that were in packaging. So we're using 100% paper-based package fill. Another effort that we're really leaning into is we've recently announced that we have over 20,000 electric Rivian vans on the road. So that's really, that's additional technology that we're leaning into that does help with our overall sustainability efforts. And I just mentioned regionalization. Even though the product is closer to the customer, that actually means fewer touches that are required to get that package to your door. So that saves on the carbon and the carbon emissions overall. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Last question really quickly, Sarah. Where are you on drone deliveries? We know that that's been something that's been talked about for quite some time.
They are real. We actually just launched drone deliveries in the Arizona area. So for our customers in Arizona, they're experiencing that new experience. And so we're continuing to evolve in that space, but drones are a real thing.
Very cool. All right, Sarah Rhodes, thank you so much for spending some time with us on this very busy Cyber Monday. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
You too. All right, still ahead, CBS News investigates Starbucks and its commitment to recycling. What really happens when you toss one of their plastic cups into the store's recycling bin? Probably not what you'd hope for. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Ever wondered what Starbucks does with all the plastic cups people throw into their in-store recycling bins? Well, CBS News discovered that most of those cups actually never get recycled. So joining us now to explain is our national environmental correspondent, David Schechter. Good to see you.
Good to be here again.
All right, so tell us about, let's start at the beginning. Tell us about why people think that if they get a plastic cup from Starbucks with their iced coffee in it. They finish it up and they toss it into the recycling bin. Why it's actually not getting recycled?
Well, the recycling bins say, it tells this customer actually to put it here. There's a little blue bin and it says, please put your cup in here. And so you're setting up the expectation to the customer that it's going to be recycled.
Right.
So what we did is we got trackers and we put them inside like a whole bunch of cups. 36 of these cups had like an Apple tracker in it. We went around the country and you can see where 15 ended up in the landfill, 14 went to a waste transfer station, which is a place that doesn't recycle, and then you have 4 of them that went to an incinerator where they would just burn trash, and 4 of them went to places called material recovery facilities where they would have the possibility of being recycled. So we're kind of checking the Starbucks promise, saying, hey, customer, we're going to recycle these things if you put them in here. The reality, what we found is that didn't happen.
So in the piece that you showed us on CBS Mornings earlier today, you talked to some people who try to explain to you why this is happening and why Starbucks isn't doing enough.
Well, I think the big reason that it's happening is the kind of plastic that we use in a cup. It's called number 5 polypropylene plastic, and it's what's widely used in single-use cups. And so Starbucks says, hey, we make a cup, it is a recyclable cup. Technically, it can be recycled. But what we're finding out in the world, in the wild, is that there are really no companies at any scale that are recycling this cup. Like basically 1% of, according to the EPA, of this number 5 plastic actually gets recycled. So while Starbucks says, hey, our cup is recyclable, in reality, there aren't really companies that are going to recycle very much of it. They're certainly not turning it back into cups, which is sort of what you're thinking. Oh, they're going to use the plastic and we're going to be able to drink out of it again. And so that's why people call recycling a myth.
Right. It's a mind screw because you think they tell you, no, this is recyclable. And then you put it in the recycling bin, but then you find out through your reporting that, in fact, none of this stuff is getting recycled, and we're just contributing to the destruction of our planet. So what is the solution if you're a consumer?
Yeah, well, Starbucks actually offers a pretty good start, and I did it this morning. I took my own personal cup into the Starbucks near my hotel, and they put my coffee order into my cup and gave it back to me. So no plastic was used in that scenario. That is available in the app. That's available in the store. That's available in the drive-thru. I think it's not widely known that that's available, and it's also an inconvenience for the customer who doesn't want to do that. That's not why they're going to Starbucks.
Well, yeah, and that's the bottom line, right? That the onus is once again on the consumer and not the corporations who are profiting off of us.
That's right.
All right, David Schechter, always great to have you. Thank you very much for your reporting. Much more news coming up. Stay with us. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Thousands of giant pandas are greeting travelers flying into Hong Kong's airport. Yes, you heard that right. The sculptures are part of the city's largest panda-themed exhibit. Hong Kong hopes to capitalize on the current panda craze that boomed since 2 panda cubs were born at a local theme park. The sculptures will be moved to several other locations later this month before they go to auction. All those proceeds will be donated to supporting giant panda conservation efforts. All right, First Lady Jill Biden has unveiled the White House holiday decor this year, and this year's theme is Peace and Light. The decorations use nearly 10,000 feet of ribbon, over 28,000 ornaments, and over 2,000 doves. There are 83 Christmas trees throughout the White House. President Biden and the First Lady say they hope the nation will be blessed with the peace and light of the holiday season. All right, that does it for me, folks, but stay right where you are. After the break, Elizabeth Cook is live from San Francisco with all the breaking news from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.